So, thank you guys for that. This panel is moderated by Dom Bei, and I've got to give him, an introduction that is befitting his name. So please give a warm welcome to the stage to Dom Bei.
Legend, brother. Check, check. Good morning, Lugano Plan B. How's everyone doing? Okay. Let's try this again. Bitcoin currently is the 8th most valuable asset on planet Earth, boasting 1.25 zeta hash. Plan B, Lugano, are we extreme fear yet or what? How are you guys doing this morning? Okay. All right, so this next panel is something you might expect in the United Nations. This is the convergence of Bitcoin and politics, reminding everyone that you may not be interested in politics, but of course, politics will find an interest in you. So we're gonna introduce our panel, amazingly qualified and talented panel. First, with little introduction needed, the hereditary prince of Serbia and Yugoslavia, Chief Strategy Officer at Jan 3, Filip Karadjordjevic. Close. Yeah, one of the hardest panel pronunciations. We're just getting started here, folks. Okay, an easier one. Former executive director out of the White House Crypto Council, CEO of USAT. Give it up for Bo Hines. Former candidate for the French National Assembly. Give a round of applause for Aurore Galves. Coming all the way from Kazakhstan, Deputy Prime Minister of Kazakhstan and the Minister of AI and Digital Development, Zhaslan Madiyev. And the former Chancellor of the Republic of Austria, Sebastian Kurz. Okay, so UN rules don't apply, so feel free to jump in. We're gonna get right into it. Bitcoin was designed to be apolitical, outside of the political system. We have political institutions, obviously demonstrated by the extreme depth of you all here on this panel, finding Bitcoin. Why now? Why are political institutions finding Bitcoin? Jump in, let's rock and roll, and please dive in at your convenience. Bo, go for it, man.
Happy to start. Well, look, I think that it's a result of the demand of the people, right? So for a long time, I was listening to the last speaker as he was talking to you all, describe how government had viewed cryptocurrency and Bitcoin more specifically, right, as almost a criminal asset that was used for nefarious activity. And what they've realized is that that's not the case. People want freedom, and they want the freedom to move money how they please. And so the demand that people like yourself have created for this commodity has changed the course of history, and governments are forced to address it. So in the United States, obviously we've created the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, in which Treasury is responsible for being a custodian over, but that's a direct result of the power and persistence that you create, the folks in this audience. And I think that's an incredible thing to recognize, and I think that it'll change really the course of history forever. You know, we say in the US now that Bitcoin is digital gold. It is a commodity that should be recognized and harnessed on behalf of the American people, and I think that's something that will happen across the rest of the globe.
That's a great question, and it brings up the point. We have a tremendous representation from nations all over the world here. What is the opportunity cost for nations that dismiss Bitcoin and do not get involved in Bitcoin as a digital asset and a payment network? In the past, we've seen whether it's nuclear arms or internet technology, things that are forward-facing. Some countries embrace them early, some later. what is the opportunity cost for nations out there that say, Bitcoin's a fad, it's just another Ponzi scheme, we're not going to get involved in this?
I think the comparison is very good with the nuclear weapon, because now we can see in the United States they integrated Bitcoin in their strategical reserves. So it means the armaments began. And as in the European point of view, we need to fill the gap, and we cannot afford being late on that. We need to follow United States strategy now.
And if you don't give a proper regulation, infrastructure, do not give incentives, so you still will see that this sector will develop on its own in the gray area. So in early 2020s, we saw that Kazakhstan has become like top 2 country in terms of crypto mining, in terms of global hash rate, when there was a ban in China on crypto mining. So suddenly crypto miners started to move to Kazakhstan. At that time, we didn't have any regulation, and Kazakhstan became top 2 country in the world. And this triggered us to develop a law on digital assets. And so now we are licensing mining firms, give accreditation to mining pools, provide licenses to crypto exchange firms, and we see that these clear rules of the games attract foreign companies to come and use Kazakhstan as a hub for crypto industry in the region. And these clear rules of the games, I think that the opportunity cost is that you'll have developing crypto industry, but in the gray area, in the gray zone, so that the monetary and fiscal authorities will not see what are the flows in this area, and that poses some additional macroprudential risks, in our opinion.
Zhaslan, coming from Kazakhstan, how do you see Bitcoin infrastructure playing a role in your country's ability to negotiate with other countries 10 years from now, 20 years from now? The fact that you guys are getting involved in building this infrastructure, where does it put you on the global stage in the future?
First of all, I think that there are some natural advantages of Kazakhstan for building this base Bitcoin infrastructure, which is the crypto mining industry. So energy is cheap. We are building number of energy generating source projects, and we believe that in 3, 4, 5 years of time, there will be an abundance of energy with the huge energy surplus in Kazakhstan. So which makes it very attractive for the Bitcoin miners to come to Kazakhstan and expand and be very competitive on energy prices. And given the fact that it's all the costs are in soft currency, and when you mine, you're getting long on hard currency, it's a very, I think, the positive economics for the project. This is one thing. Number 2, at early stages, we put a great emphasis on developing human capital development in that industry. So we launched blockchain engineering and blockchain compliance mining degree programs in 20+ universities in more than 10 regions of Kazakhstan, and we expect 40,000-50,000 students will graduate with minor degrees next year on that field. So we believe that the human capital development within this time frame that you have indicated is very important. So to become an entrepreneurial blockchain Bitcoin hub in the region.
I just wanted to add, that the opportunity cost the first move is in the energy market, in the Bitcoin mining market, are obviously that they're going to be rewarded the best, but I think this is something that's going to benefit everyone else in the energy-wise, because Bitcoin mining actively seeks stranded, wasted energy, and it's not only a monetary renaissance, but it's also an energy revolution as well. And we've seen some great movements from countries like Kazakhstan, but also Bhutan is an outlier as well, that they're capturing a lot of their stranded hydroelectricity energy. And we saw Oman 2 years ago investing $1 billion into mining infrastructure. And this move is something that's really positive, because it helps to lower energy costs for the public as well. And this is also thanks to the innovations that's happening within Bitcoin mining, and this is something that that's helping the average person, and politically people are switching on to that, and I think we're going to see a lot more movement in that, and adoption nationwide, nation state-wise, is still very much an early adopters at the moment, but I think the energy adoption is definitely pushing it forward.
Yes, the cost for this missing opportunity in France was huge because in France 10 years ago we have a French Bitcoiners who do Bitcoin mining. He proposed to EDF, the national company of energy, to do Bitcoin mining. They refused, and if they had listened, we would be debt-free now, so the cost is huge.
Philip, you brought up an interesting point. We're early in the cycle, and I find it interesting that, you know, for the first time, it feels as if we have two cycles converging at once. We have an institutional cycle, which, based on my experience with pensions, we're very early in that cycle. Very few pensions hold Bitcoin or have direct exposure, but many are starting to get into the space and learn about it. At the same time, nation states now are noticing Bitcoin. How do you see these two cycles engaging with each other? You know, it seems that the nation state adoption cycle would come after the institutional cycle, because it's difficult for a nation to adopt Bitcoin when its institution and citizens don't also adopt Bitcoin or haven't already done so.
Sure, I mean, it's difficult to define what adoption really is, and an institution, what sort of institutions are adopting it? As you said, pension funds are still very early to it. But we see right now a lot of private institutions. We see Strategy, which was very much an outlier, adopting it as a treasury form. Now we see an explosion of that strategy happening. So we're moving probably into early majority there, maybe. I mean, that can be a question. But politically, nation state-wise, I still think we're very much in early adoption phase. And this is something that we're trying to do at Jan3, is trying to push that forward. Yeah, I think more nation states are starting to switch on to the need that they need, that basically Bitcoin doesn't need politicians, but politicians will end up needing Bitcoin. There's a lot of Bitcoin holders out there, and I was just speaking to Aurore about this, and they create a big voting bloc right now in the States, where Hines is from. About 70 million Americans hold crypto in some form, and that's a huge voting bloc. So statistically, if you're not pro Bitcoin or crypto in some shape or form, then you're going to lose out a lot of votes as well. So it's really shaping politics as we speak right now, and that's really interesting. So, yeah.
But I think it's going to change quickly now. I think it, like always, it takes very long, and that it's like a hockey stick. So from my perspective, I think there are countries like Kazakhstan which are far ahead. Europe is as always slow and hesitant, but also if you look at the investments in Europe, there's continuous growth on crypto, especially in the Eastern European countries. And I think especially because of the new Trump administration and being so positive about crypto, many other countries are going to follow very quickly. And I think then it's like a hockey stick, so the moment you have a few early adopters, many others follow quickly, and I think we are right at this turning point now.
And also at the early stage, when there is a crypto adoption among the general population, there always will be kind of a gap or void in the legislation. There will be uncertainties given that the legislation is not that developed. And also at the same time, there are those legal enforcement agencies which try to, I don't know, some people already really get scared of using crypto because of on the other side there are legal enforcement agencies, and given the gaps in the legislation. And it's important that at all senior leadership levels in the country, there is a huge support of the crypto industry support. And that's so our president, our prime minister, they're all being right now the pro-crypto, and help with all the legislation by being quite agile in terms of taking all these necessary amendments into legislation. We have separate government bodies and regulatory authorities which take quickly regulatory acts in order to adjust the legislation. And our president has announced several important projects to build a crypto city, to build a crypto reserve, to make possible crypto payments in the cities with the merchants. And so these projects are currently underway, and we are working on that. And it's important to see to show this whole support at all levels of those authorities.
I think there's one reason why I'm a bit more positive also now for the Western liberal democracies, or especially for Europe. Because if you look at the party structure, crypto has become a bit political now, and the more to the right or to the center-right parties are, the more they are in favor of freedom, the more they are also normally in favor and supportive towards crypto. And if you look at the European polls, you see that there is a shift to the right at the moment, which means that, of course, there will also be more and more governments and more people in the European Parliament positive for crypto, just because it's something that goes more hand in hand with their ideology than on the left side.
I have a question about parties, but before that, you brought up Trump's administration's adoption, and I want to ask Bo, what was the turning point for the White House? It seemed like a huge turning point that a sitting U.S. president prioritized Bitcoin. He called it out. I was in Nashville when he went to talk to the conference there. I know both candidates were invited. One went. What was the turning point there? And then to the stage, we often hear, how does the world view that occurring in the United States with Trump and Bitcoin? Is it something to say, this is going to influence us, or is it something that you guys were already looking at? I'm curious to hear that dynamic.
Well, this is a little bit more domestic specific, but if you were at that conference, you know that the loudest applause line was firing Gary Gensler. And obviously that's the former SEC chairman under the Biden administration. The reason I bring him up is because the standard that was set prior to the Trump admin was basically policymaking through prosecution and persecution. And that started with Bitcoiners. And so, we came in and our mindset was that this has to be a complete sea change. We have to completely reverse what has been set and the standard that has been in place, and actually educate folks on really what Bitcoin is and what digital assets are. And so, Bitcoin sets the standard for what it means to be decentralized, what it means to be a true digital commodity. And we've used that standard and applied it across basically the entire digital assets ecosystem. And so Bitcoin, is the grandfather for us in a sense of welcoming in a new age that completely revolutionizes the financial system. David likes to describe it as, having the immaculate conception. Obviously, we understand it's finite. We understand that governments have a strong desire to obtain it and hold on to it. And so I think as we look at this long term, we have to recognize that, one, this is a commodity that's here to stay and probably, in my opinion, becomes the most valuable asset in the world. But from a broader perspective, think about how many things from this ecosystem will be applied to the financial system more generally. You think about Tether, you think about the way that stable coins work now. We're going to have 24/7 markets. We're going to have tokenized public securities. We're going to have a brave new world in the financial system that creates really connectivity that we've never seen before across the entire globe. And that is a direct result of Bitcoin in this ecosystem. And so the US government fully recognizes that. And I'm proud to say I worked for an administration that embraced it.
I think there's probably one more aspect in addition to that. I think if you look at Trump and his team around, we didn't touch the traditional banking system so far, but after the first term of Trump, they also made their experiences with some traditional banks. Some of them were debanked, had problems to get bank accounts. So I think as a politician or as a former politician, if you once go through this process, you get a totally different view on the traditional banking system, and probably besides the technology and all the positive aspects of crypto, I think this is something very emotional that also makes people support, I would say, such a new system and more freedom, much more than probably in the past.
So we have major things happening at high levels of the government. I want to switch to Aurore real quick because I share an experience with you. I ran for the state pension. What is it like to be a candidate running on a pro-Bitcoin platform? You know, there's so much adoption, yet you were attacked, if I understand correctly, by political parties that were opposed to you, and they used Bitcoin as a way to distract and deceive people and scare them. Can you talk about that briefly?
To me, it was fully positive because I don't represent a threat in France. It was just the first time they have seen a candidate, a pro-Bitcoin candidate. But it could be evolved in the future. I would hope to be joined by many other Bitcoiners to be candidates. And yes, at the moment we would represent a threat, we would be attacked. First, to be candidate, you need to give up on your privacy because you need to go public, so to disclose your personal information. If you are elected, you need to declare your net worth, so it's something that other parties will watch out, and yes, you will be on the spotlight. So I wasn't attacked because, yes, I don't represent a threat, but indeed, it could change, and I could be attacked on Bitcoin. The Bitcoin topic is not the most attacked. In France, we have a lot of scam around cryptocurrency. So when you run for election as a Bitcoin candidate, you need to spend half of your time to explain how Bitcoin is different from cryptocurrencies and different of the scam, and to not be affiliated to this fraud. So this is complicated, and you need also to justify yourself that you not belong to far-right parties, because now in France only fringe parties mention Bitcoin. So this is the main problem also, to explain that Bitcoin is neutral and you are not especially from far-right side if you are Bitcoiners.
We know that young people overwhelmingly put more faith into systems like Bitcoin than legacy political institutions. Two opposing political parties that use Bitcoin as a attack vector or dismiss it, what do you say to them? Whether Bitcoin should be a unifying tool. It's a payment network that anyone can access in the world without permission. Yet political parties getting involved use it as a weapon. What do you say to other parties? And it goes without surprise, right? The Democratic Party in the United States is one of those parties that has yet to adopt Bitcoin as a party. What do you say to parties that are not adopting Bitcoin?
Well, I think first of all, it's not a surprise. So innovation, no matter in what field or in which field, doesn't start everywhere at the same time. It's always the way that you have first movers and early adopters, and then you have others that follow, and you have people that stay skeptical. So I think nothing to complain about that fact, because that's always like this with innovation. And second, I think the more something it becomes relevant, the more it also gets in the center of the political debate. So I think also here no real reason to complain that there's a political debate about Bitcoin. It just shows, and about crypto, it just shows that it has become more and more relevant, and it's not going to go away. I think when it comes to the US, it's also no surprise that the Democrats are against it now, or more skeptical, because that's also part of our political system. If one party says E, the other one has to say B or has to be against it. And especially with Trump, I think there is a lot of people, and especially the Democrats, that have to be against everything he's in favor of. So I think all these things are no big surprise, and I think the political debate about crypto and Bitcoin is going to stay, but at the moment I think those in favor are gaining, and I think those which are skeptical have less arguments. So I think it will be an easy political debate, but a debate is going to stay.
And we see that, we expect that the future will be tokenized. There will be tens of trillions of assets that will be tokenized. Securities will be tokenized, documents will be tokenized, people will be tokenized. So, but this is an economic ladder. You have to be prepared for that. You have to start with the basics, prepare the legislation, regulatory framework, adoption among people, institutions, and so on. So you cannot just, it cannot happen just overnight. So you have to, over time, gradually prepare for that, and you cannot miss this opportunity and lag behind.
So as we kind of wrap up, you know, Bitcoiners, Bo mentioned Bitcoiners are incredibly engaged. I don't know any other phenomenon that leads people to look up an IMF contract with El Salvador to go look at the fine print of whether they can or cannot, right? We're talking about a tool that, you know, has built through its value system a super citizen. How are countries courting these super citizens? I know human capital was mentioned. And kind of to close, what do you say to Bitcoiners that kind of, you know, Bitcoin was given as something outside of this system and they may not be interested in politics? What is your comment to those Bitcoiners on how they can engage if they hold a fundamental belief that, you know, Bitcoin may not be able to coexist with this political system as is now?
Well, look, I think that Bitcoin now is basically the beacon of what it means to have financial freedom. And so for this ecosystem, it's really not a choice to be politically engaged or not. I mean, it's something that we have to be in the fight for. And obviously the US has now set the standard for what it means and what this commodity means more generally for the world. But I think that that's worth protecting and worth fighting for across the entire globe. And so I'd encourage everyone to get involved. We want more folks that are looking at those contracts, right? I think that you're going to start seeing Bitcoiners in the US become more engaged at a local level as well. And this honestly is a result of the fact that the financial system has failed so many people for so long. And I'll tie it back to Tether just briefly. You know, for a long time they told Paolo that he was servicing a niche. That the niche happens to be, you know, 1/3 of the global population, folks that are underbanked, debanked, underserved. You know, Bitcoin is truly the representative of the entire digital assets ecosystem, obviously, as being the grandfather. But again, I would just say that in terms of financial freedom, it's worth protecting and worth fighting for, and also worth educating. So I'd encourage folks in this room as well to educate folks around you about what it means to you.
Can I? So, yes, Bitcoin is empowering. Bitcoin gives you individual sovereignty. And it's just like the advent of the internet, where it's changing the game of politics. That led to the decentralization of media, the independent media, and Bitcoin just added to that. And now it's harder for, it's changing politics as we speak. It's harder for politicians to hide their games and the constraints and compromises that they work under. So it's waking many people up to that, and it's also changing politicians to actually work closer with the people. So it's democratizing the society as we speak, and it's making people freer and more open to the flaws of the financial system that we're all living under. And as Bo says, you know, education is key, and Bitcoin just opens your eyes to a whole new world of how we should be living. And so I just urge everyone just to keep on studying and keep on finding the truth, which is Bitcoin.
And there are a number of countries which decided to build those crypto-friendly regulations and the ecosystems. So the community should really look for those environments and do not afraid from participating in the sandboxes, in experimenting, because they have to lead this innovation. I mean, those entrepreneurs, they have to innovate and drive further this ecosystem to grow this community, and because more and more innovation should happen there.
Yes, I would say that Bitcoin is apolitical, but and Bitcoin doesn't need us to be run, but we are living in a political society and we need Bitcoin. And I could be pretty afraid that regular parties, they just see Bitcoin as a financial asset to put in the strategical reserve, but we have also big concerns about privacy, and freedom won't be given. So we need to take it, and Bitcoin is not about Bitcoin is freedom, and freedom is not about escaping. We need to participate. And you know, in France, Bitcoiners, sometimes they are given up on politics, and we need to encourage them to participate in, because it's very important that we build the future we want to live in. And if we are not participating, the laws will be still written, but just against us. So it's very important to vote and to participate.
Well, very well said. A group of individuals at the nation-state level operating at a very high level, both nationally and on the private side. And so Plan B Lugano, please give a huge, huge round of applause for our panelists here today on Bitcoin and Convergence.